Oh, I'm sorry, did I give you? Okay.
We are starting the next panel from promise to progress. Whoever participated in COP29 has been witnessing this many promises, and the reactions after that were full of suspicious whether is it realistic to fulfill all the kind of promises. One of them is to triple investments in the developing world. And the main question was from where those kind of resources are going to come, or is that realistic or not? And now I'm opening a panel about all kind of promises that happened on COP29, and I'm giving firstly floor to first Anna Palacio.
Well, thanks. I think that we have already listened to a lot of interesting things about COP29. So allow me to take the title of our panel. I see from promise to progress in a different way. I see it as a very politically correct title. I would say it's from words to deeds, just delivering on what we speak. And maybe because I come from Europe, because if in order to have the framework of the COP29, we have to remember some very simple facts. First, all of us, we are concerned about our equation, our energy mix, and our equation in terms of CO2 and in terms of contributing to the pollution to this with gases in general terms. We have regional, especially the European Union, our commitments at the European Union level. But we many times forget that this is a world challenge where we are together on it, that there are no particular just paths that can be said. This is the first thing. The second thing is that we tend to see this as just energy transition, but we forget that in the world there are about 700 million people that have no access to power, that for developing countries, this has to be, this goal of energy has to be managed with the goal to development. And of course, all this comes to my third point, is that this was launched by the European Union with a very European, and here we have the former Foreign Affairs Minister of Austria, but also Commissioner, and she knows that. In 2009, at the COP15 in Copenhagen, there were pledges. The $100 billion was pledged in 2009. There, the European Union came with an idea of predicating, just convincing the world. And I think that this is at the backdrop of our challenges with the COP. So the European position has prevailed in the COP editions, and it was quite ideological. Until when? Well, until now, until the world has changed. The world of today is not any longer this world that the European Union just brought forward as being the standard bearer of energy transition. And when you are a Pakistan, developing country with bulging society, I mean, of course, everybody will tell you in Pakistan, in India, in China, of course, we are concerned about the climate, but we are also concerned about development. And this is, we have been preaching renewables in Africa, in places where it's not transition. I mean, they have nothing to transition from. Is this, this quip from Africans? Okay, we want to decarbonize, but let us carbonize a bit. Today, and this is interesting, China is 30%, United States 11%. Then we have India with 8% of the emissions. Then European Union with 6%. Then Russia with 5%, and then you go from there on. And all sub-Saharan Africa is less than 2%. And this is, I think, the backdrop of the COP29. I think COP29 has been a hard-won COP because it had everything against. The moment could not be worse because of, at the same time, you had the Brazil G20, but of course it was 2 weeks after Trump got elected and after everybody knew that this would mean a big shakeup in the world. Having said that, I think that Baku consolidated what started in Dubai is that the green the green agenda of the European Union is not dominating. There is a proof of realism that has to be taken. Of course, we don't know to this idea of horrendous of unfair of Paris, that is Trump, or this idea of drill, baby, drill. I think that there is an awareness, and this was achieved by Paris, that there is a universal understanding and universal awareness that climate is there, that there is a concern all over the world about climate. What progress is in Baku in general, not concerning, of course, finance. Finance was a big achievement of Baku, but we have said a lot from this 2.4 trillion of the G77. Okay, it was not that, but it was better than the 100 billion, and we expect that the world will deliver. Again, what we see is that COP model is not updated. We need to update it. We cannot have China put together with Mali or with with the sub-Saharan countries. We cannot have just Saudi Arabia in this same group. We need to update, but these are the rules, and this was one of the interesting achievements. Now, I will just go through them, and I'm sure that we will have some time to go back. The second aspect is resilience. There were some achievements in pushing the idea of resilience. We have to adapt. We need to adapt. I mean, 1.5 is gone. Now we are on 2 degrees, but this means just addressing adaptation, which was kind of an uncomfortable, dirty truth to address until today. There is this Baku adaptation roadmap. Maybe we can go through that. But I want to have the headlines. The third was carbon markets. For 10 years, we have been working on developing Article 6 of the Paris Accord. I mean, in Baku, we managed that. And developing rules, except for us Europeans that we love, the world doesn't. And it has been said this morning that it is important to remember that Paris is not legally binding. So we need to get there. Health and water was another aspect. Tedros, the WHO, this morning reminded us about that. There are also initiatives on water that are very interesting. So, I mean, is the glass half full or half empty? I think that we have a glass, which is not, I mean, it's not, we don't have to take this for granted. We have a glass and we are working on this glass, putting water. We have to keep on doing that. I think we know that if we are not aware, and this general awareness is important, we could be working towards a 5 degrees increase of the temperature of the world. And what I think that this hard-won results in Baku just reflected the world of today. It's not easy. It's not easy. I wouldn't say that the glass is half full, but we are going there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna.
And I kept the time.
Fantastic. Thank you. They're very disciplined. Thank you, Anna. I'm giving floor to Anna Birchall.
Thank you, Mr. President. Firstly, it's so good to see you all, dear friends, and may please allow me to wish you and your families all the best for this year, to be a better year for us in our professional, private lives, but likewise for the world and for our region as well, talking for Central Eastern Europe. As we gather to reflect on the outcomes of COP29, I think we must ask ourselves a critical question. Have we truly advanced from ambitious commitments to tangible actions that combat climate change? Because the urgency of this moment cannot be overstated. Each year brings stark reminders, from rising sea levels to increasingly severe weather events, that we are racing against time. And I think that's something that sometimes we do take for granted, because we are not understanding that we do race against time. Yet this urgency also brings opportunities, an opportunity to lead, to innovate and collaborate in ways that redefine our relationship with not just with the planet, but with ourselves as well. COP29 in Baku marked a significant milestone in the global climate agenda. Anna was mentioning key issues. The discussions tackled key priorities, and I should stress here, and we all should take a moment to commend Azerbaijan for its exemplary leadership in hosting COP29. I think Azerbaijan not just facilitated a very good dialogue during difficult times, though, but also demonstrated its dedication to advancing the global climate agenda. Coming to a few issues that they were discussed and practically as conclusions of COP29, Anna was mentioning about the state, the mix in the energy. And this has always been a serious problem at the EU level. We've been facing it. I've been advocating when I was in office, and finally, at the EU level, it was decided to actually allow the mix according to the realities on the ground of each state. And while we like renewable, for example, in Romania, we do have some renewable. Likewise, we do have a very good nuclear. And by allowing now the nuclear is giving us a very, very good, energy base that will allow us to further develop. If we talk about the theme of this panel, I think speaks directly to the challenge we now face, translating promises into progress. This transition requires a focus on sustained efforts across several fronts, and please allow me just to mention them. Implementing agreements. I think the outcome of COP29 provide a roadmap, but as we all saw sometimes, or maybe too often, roadmaps are only effective when followed. And we need to ask ourselves if we must move from declarations to actions with clear timelines and measurable outcomes. And maybe it is time to show by action that declarations are good, but then if we follow them with actions, that will take us to the unlocking financing, which was another big issue because climate action demands significant investment and innovative financing mechanisms, and those are key to mobilizing those resources. And public-private partnerships, state-backed guarantees, and global funds must work in concern to ensure equitable access to financing. Then driving the innovation. From carbon capture technologies to next generation energy storage, innovation will define the success of the energy transition. And in this regard, governments, industries, and academic institutions, they really must collaborate to accelerate research and development. Engaging communities. The success of any climate initiative depends on public support, as we all know. Engaging communities through education, outreach, and transparent communication will be critical in building trust and foreseeing long-term engagements. Of course, accountability and monitoring. Lastly, robust mechanisms for tracking and verifying progress are essential, because if we are just coming up again with promises and no serious outcomes, then we will be losing the public support. At COP29, the groundwork was laid once again, but it is up to us all over the world, leaders, policymakers, industries, and practically citizens to ensure that progress continues. And in this regard, leadership in this context, or especially during tough times, as you know, during tough times, you see the real leaders who are coming up and put in front of the people the tough questions, the tough issues, but with assuming, even though apparently tough decisions, with maybe not popular outcome in terms of their own elections, if I may say so, but on a long run, it is the right thing to do in terms of the policy. And in my humble opinion, I am, I keep to this value that you enter politics to lead and to serve your citizens, not to be popular, even though, in the end of the day, your actions will define you, how you shape the history of your country or of your communities. So with that in mind, as we move forward, let us draw inspiration. I want to keep it in a good note, in a positive note. Let's draw inspiration from the collaborative spirit that defined COP29. Azerbaijan leadership demonstrated that when nations come together with a shared purpose, remarkable progress can be achieved. Let us build on this moment. Of course, discussions like this are very good. But likewise, if we join our efforts and if we join our voices, we should achieve tangible results. And we might not have, all the promises fulfilled. Well, let's wish that we will. But if we come with some promises and say, look, those were the promise, this is what we achieved, and we didn't achieve the rest because of, and I do believe that if you come in front of the people honest, giving a report or not just feedback, but actually coming in front of the people and allow them to keep you accountable for your promises, I think that will be a very good foundation where we could build. Because what I am noticing across the world, the trust, it's broken, and we do need to rebuild that trust, including between the politicians and the public. And if we are rebuilding that trust, then all the other things can come. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Before continuing our talks about the promises from COP29 and the fulfilling promises, I would like to share with you a dilemma. Which kind of policies are really going to protect our planet? And because we don't have a crystal clear answers on many questions, whether electrical vehicles are going to save planet or not. I mean, the production of the batteries is very dirty, and mining the lithium is very controversial. What about other batteries, sodium and natrium? Too far from efficient batteries right now. Hydrogen is something which is promising a lot, but not many companies are investing in that. About wind energy, huge investment, big investment, but also very controversial in terms of the land, because land is going to be dried and not very useful for agriculture. A lot of people from agriculture are making protests about the wind energy. Solar is getting much better. Investment in solar, technologically thinking, getting better and better every year, and this is very cheap, very interesting. Nuclear, always facing with the problems. Many nuclear power plants are maybe better solution, but many countries are focused on big nuclear power plants. Hydro, making big impact on landscape, huge impact. I mean, lot can create a lot of problems with the stability of the land and the stones around the hydropower plants. Lot of problems we have. Lot.
30 seconds. You know, what has proven to be best for heat house gases is going from coal, from dirty coal to gas. This is something that I think President Aliyev highlighted in this COP. This is how United States went down their emissions, by replacing coal by gas. And this is a big discussion, but I think that we have to take this into account, especially now with Trump.
No, gas is better than coal, but gas is not good enough. Unfortunately, not good enough. Not clean.
But by just aiming at the ideal, perfect, to have zero emissions, we are where we are. If we would agree on targeting coal, the studies are there. I'm not doing that, and I don't have the figures, but the studies are there.
Csaba, floor is yours.
Not an easy
Easy.
Thank you, Boris. First and foremost, let me add my voice to those of the two ladies congratulating the Azeri leadership. You managed to pull out the rabbit from the hat against many odds and many predictions that there was no rabbit. There was. Despite the many difficulties and the very short period of preparations. Let me have two political observations and some pragmatic ones of what kind of lessons learned we can take when we try to move from promise to implementation. One of the political observation is that whatever way we can do the implementation of the agreements ironed out in Baku, it should be part of the sustainability transformation. We are engaged in many negotiations on climate, SDG financing, biodiversity, and oceans. These are all about the same big story, and we are the most efficient if we can pull together the projects, pull together the objectives, and pull together the financial resources. And the second is even more political. If we keep using climate and I would say crises related to global common goods to serve the geopolitical competition among nations, then we are going to be doomed. If we can separate to the largest possible, extent possible, the necessary actions on the global common goods from the geopolitical competition, then we might be in a much better position. I know it's very easy to say, but very difficult to be done. Some pragmatic observations. I agree with Anna that one of the keys to the successful implementation of what has been decided upon in Baku is building a credible, transparent tracing mechanism of the commitments. There were 11 initiatives, over 10 pledges, more than 160 countries signed up to these different programs. So we need a system that can be time-bound, kind of following a roadmap, and which can be inherited by the Brazilians as well, showing who has said what and who is doing what should be done on national levels and what should be done on more global level. On the financing, yes, I agree that some countries, many countries, may believe that the outcome is far shorter than what they have expected. But if I put together the NCQG, the Article 6 regime, the MDB agreement, not mentioning some other chapters, well over $500 billion per year are going to be moved. It's a huge amount of money. It's less than what some people hoped for, but it's significant enough to ignite transformation in a number of countries. So climate financing money should generate and push economic changes, because transformation will be done first and foremost in the economy, in the real economy. If we can achieve it, then the process can speed up, and the 500 can be more promising. Those 500, be them the 300, be them the part of the MDBs, as we discussed in the previous panel, are all investments. So we should not wait for some kind of helicopter money dropped from the skies or donations. These are the sums and capitals to be invested and to move the economies. So the conditions and the set of cooperation should be built according to the best logic of the investment cooperation. And like in the case of all investments, there must be a calculable and measurable mitigation impact. On the Baku high-level dialogue on adaptation, we know that as it was mentioned already, we have reached 1.5. We are unfortunately still accelerating in the rise of surface temperature. So we are going to approach the 2 Celsius. So some of the big challenges are not a threat of the future. They are here already, and they are set to grow. The adaptation will be much more important than they were thought in the past. So adaptation must be a more urgent task than we thought in past. Bulk of the adaptation is and will be under national responsibility. But if the plans of the implementation are credible, attraction of investments and linking with mitigation financing will be much more credible and much more realistic. And every cent spent of adaptation must be impact oriented to justify the investments. My last small box. There are some urgent topics which should be hammered by all of us, including the COP29 presidency, to leave a very good heritage for the next presidency. All the initiatives were very impressive, but what is really killing now should be given the prime focus. It's water and food linked to climate. The second is we have to look at what is missing from data policies to make these agreements happening, because we have a very good set of understanding and agreements, but the planned and existing projects must be aligned with some initiatives that will help the climate action. We need to link remote sensing, real-time models, and long-term scenario building. Strangely, we haven't done it yet. We have done it only for meteorology, but we haven't done for all the other areas where we made agreements in Baku. The second, we made references that we need the help and assistance of science. So why don't we ask UNESCO, International Science Council, and other science-based global or regional platforms to line up their research projects to support the concrete COP29 initiatives? Otherwise, science and practice will not come together for climate saving. And last but not least, technology cooperation should be based on credible national mitigation and adaptation plans. That's how technology will flow. And what is closest to my heart, there was a peace initiative. Many countries signed up, some others shied away still, but it's never too late. Let's hammer on that. 56 armed conflicts are involving 92 countries today in the world. It is more than ever since the Second World War. It is the age of wars. We know that in the age of wars, climate is not going to be a priority. If we are on war will be the priority. So I fully support, and I hope NGIC will keep on supporting the peace initiative which has been announced in Baku. Thank you.
Thank you, Csaba. Yes, war is contributing to the warming of the planet and making huge pollution, not only in terms of degrees of Celsius, but in terms of mental health. It's going to be a disaster scenario. We have a lot of wars. We have almost half of the world involved directly or in the proxy war. But unfortunately, we didn't talk about that on COP29. COP29 was very important in many aspects, but I'm not memorizing that we talked about oversight and monitoring enough. I think that investment in monitoring and oversight, who is making big pollution, are going to save money and to do a lot for all of us. So today we have a capacity to analyze every single building about emission of CO2. Every single building. We can do that right now. We can analyze such aspect, which is very important. I think if we are going to invest in the monitoring, in oversight, exactly, that would be very important. But I don't see that we are doing that in the global arena. Thank you, Csaba. I'm asking the Abdulaziz to take the floor right now.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor and pleasure for me to be back in this wonderful gathering. And I missed the event in Baku, and I am very sorry for that, but that was because of certain engagements at that time. I followed the event and all what took place there. It was a great success in many ways, thanks to the leadership of Azerbaijan, President Ilham Aliyev, his commitment, his support, and also the organizers who paid a lot of effort to provide the right environment for the participants to deliberate and discuss and work on the issues of climate change and reach certain agreements. What marked this this meeting, I mean COP29, is that it was the finance COP. The main issue was the agreement on raising the allocated money for the issue of climate change from $300 billion to $1.3 trillion yearly, and this is a big figure, and I don't know how they will, bring it, and from where? From 100 yes to 300, and then the 300 will be in the context of $1.3 trillion till 2035. there were some agreements and there were some disagreements, of course, because nothing is completely successful. There are certain shortcomings. Many of those who participated, especially the youth, asked the leaders of the world to fulfill the previous commitments. Many of them were not fulfilled. So to bring new commitments and promises relies on the truthfulness of how things were done in the past. And the doubts that are in the minds of many people is that, many countries are very poor. They cannot come up with the sufficient amount of money to participate in financing this huge project. 45 countries in the world have many economic problems. They cannot afford to participate, and they are considered among the poorest countries and the worst countries in terms of the impact of climate change. I mean, they suffer a lot from climate change more than all the other countries. So if we look at this issue in its totality, I think there should be some transparency, some equality, some fair division and behavior in dealing with this great and important world issue that affects all humanity. The UN Secretary General talked about the financial system in the world, and he criticized it very severely. I will read to you what he said. He said the system is short-sighted, crisis-prone, and bearing no relations to the economic reality of today, noting that it was created before climate change even existed. And the pact for the future adopted, this is not the words of the Secretary General, I unquote, the pact of the future adopted by world leaders in September 2024 presents the most detailed agreement ever at the United Nations on the need to reform the international financial architecture so that it better represents and serves developing countries. Until then, this system is not serving the interests of developing countries. And we listened today to many interventions citing the reality in the international financial system, and that most of the funds are not divided equally, and that great percentage of it is not going to the target, but going to other directions. So the promises are great. The recommendations are wonderful, but how can we implement them and benefit from the dreams that those who put this beautiful story together? This demands all the member states, especially those who are, the world community, especially those who have the will and the ability to finance this great project, to come forward and to put the needed support, but to put it in a systematic way that makes it goes to the target immediately, and not to go through different channels. I worked in the international joint action, they call it international joint action, for 34 years. And I know the channels of this work. Most of the money that is allocated for international work is paid in salaries and in missions. The minimum or little of the budget goes for support, for financing projects. They send experts, give them first-class tickets, give them per diem, and they go there for a month or 2 months, maybe less, maybe more, and the salary is high. But what the country or the targeted issue gets the peanuts of it. So the whole system has to be revised, has to be corrected. So the majority of the allocated money goes to the projects, to the needy people, and the least of it goes to those who supervise implementing it. Without this, we will go into this vicious circle and never reach our goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency Altwaijri. I think that your intervention is very good, bringing a little bit more skeptical, but also very realistic approach to that topic. Can be very important. Also, we are not caring about investment in new researches, technological developments, which is crucially important. That happened in some of those energy sectors, and this is why we have a progress, especially in solar. In others, we don't have that big progress, and in terms of efficiency, in terms of producing energy. And right now, I am giving floor to Mr. Ghanem, Hafez Ghanem, and he has been moderating previous panel, and right now he's participant. He has a deux chapeaux.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Well, COP29 so far has been successful, but its place in history will depend much more on what will happen next, rather than what actually happened and discussed in Baku. So when I look at the outcomes from COP29, there is one, it was billed as the finance COP. So one of the biggest outcome, the most important outcome, has been the tripling of the NCQG from 100 billion to 300 billion. I spend a lot of my time talking to ministers of finance in developing countries, and they are very, very skeptical. And as Anna Birchall said, the trust is broken. And I try to understand why are they so skeptical. And the reaction to this tripling of the NCQG was not one of euphoria and jumping up and down with happiness. And they gave me 3 reasons. And I think that this is something that we need to be careful about. Said, well, this 100 billion, which was promised in, I think in 2009, was only achieved in 2022. Yeah, so those 300 billion, will they be achieved in the 22nd century? So that is the first point of skepticism. The second point of skepticism was that, and that goes to your point, Csaba, when you talk about 500 billion and shifting money and the use of the MDBs. The second point is that actually, if you look at the 100 billion, about 35 billion out of those 100 billion was reallocated money from development to climate mitigation. So you're moving from financing our national interest to financing a global public good. So that is the second reason for their skepticism. The third reason for their skepticism, and the last one, is that, again, if you look at this 100 billion, about more than around 65 to 70 billion of it, I think, is loans. So it's only around 30 billion that is really in grants. So you are actually lending us money. I'm speaking from the Minister of Finance's point. You're lending us money when we're already over indebted to finance a global public good. So again, so those are the 3 areas where that explain the skepticism from the developing countryside to this tripling of the NCQG. So somehow, as my colleagues before that talked about the need for follow-up, I think it is not just to follow up numbers. People cook numbers. It is also to make sure, that the achievements are done, that we actually deliver on those 300 billion, not in 100 years, but in a short period of time, that we are not diverting money from development to climate, and that we are not making countries borrow to finance a global public good. making poor countries borrow to finance a global public good. So this is where the problem and how it is seen from the developing countryside. Now, I really liked the formulation of COP29 of putting in place a Baku to Belém roadmap to 1.3 trillion. Because really what we need is 1.3 trillion. We don't need 300 billion is not enough. But the 1.3 trillion, and as we discussed in the previous session, cannot be public money. It will not be the governments putting in money for $1.3 trillion to finance public money. And if you break down actually what those 1.3 trillion consist of, and that it is important actually to look at the details. Roughly 800 billion of those is energy transition. Energy financing is private, can be done by the private sector. Actually, should be done by the private sector. And as my neighbor, the Palacio now said, actually, for many countries, we're not even talking about transition. We're talking about, they have nothing to transition from. In half of Africa does not have electricity. So instead of building coal power plants or even gas power plants, let's help them finance solar or wind. So that is really an important part, is that we have to have a system where we encourage more private sector investment in the energy transition and in mitigation in general. Most mitigation projects are actually can be done by the private sector. Now, why aren't they being done now? For many reasons that we discussed in the previous session. And to be frank, I don't think that the current international financial architecture is set up to support it. We talked about MEGA, we talked about the World Bank. Actually, the current financial architecture has been set up to support public investments. And public investments should be mostly in adaptation. What we need to do now, I think, is to think about whether we need to have a new kind of institution, or whether we can restructure one of the existing institutions to actually be able to identify projects in developing countries. Because we actually, if you tell me now, go and finance, I'll give you a lot of money, go and finance mitigation projects in Africa, I wouldn't know what to finance. We need to develop a pipeline of projects. And then we need to be working together with the private sector to make sure that those are bankable projects and that we are able to attract private investments in those sectors. So I think that as we think of going on the Baku to Belém roadmap to 1.3 trillion, a big part of it has to be how can we finance the energy transition or the energy investments in developing countries. And that is win-win. It is win for the countries because of now they do need that energy, and it is win for the planet, and it's win for everybody. But we need to put in place a system and the institutions that can do that. Second point, and that we need to develop in this Baku to Belém roadmap is what to do with the debt. We talked a lot about debt to equity swaps, but it is not happening. We have huge indebtedness in the developing countries. They're paying $1 trillion. They need $1.3 trillion, but right now they're paying $1 trillion in debt service. So we're very close there. Why can't we put in place a system like we did in the last century? We put in place something called the HIPIX, which reduced the debt of poor countries. It was provided that they use the savings from debt service to finance poverty reduction projects. And we asked the World Bank and the IMF to supervise that. Why don't we do something similar? Say, okay, Ghana, we talked about Ghana in the previous session. I will reduce your debt on condition that the money saved be used to finance climate projects. And we identify those projects, we ask World Bank, IMF, please supervise. So I think that we need to go in that direction. How to finance the energy transition and what to do with the debt, and that this is the only way to achieve the 1.3 trillion. And if we do that, we actually can get back the trust from the developing countries. At the same time, I mean, we have to avoid this situation where we are taking away development money to finance a global public good. And we have to avoid increasing indebtedness to finance a global public good.
I have just one follow-up, if I may.
Just a moment. I'm power right now. Now you can.
I am so in debt to you, Mr. President. No, but following what you were just listening to you, I was thinking about, ways of financing, for example, nuclear. How about the World Bank will consider to actually financing nuclear projects? Because, and I'm not talking just to the traditional power plants, but the SMRs as well, which they are going to come. Of course, I'm not going to go on and on about the nuclear, but I can tell you that one of the most cleanest sources of energy, it's from nuclear with all the other benefits. And as we speak today, because Romania had this very good, we were having 2 reactors and we are building 2 more, but at the present moment, from the nuclear, Romania is helping Moldova, Republic of Moldova, which is in a very difficult situation now. And you see how you can play geostrategically and helping, not playing in the right way. So when it comes to the financing, I think, the financial institutions like a World Bank might consider to financing. And here I'm going back from my very early days in 2002, 2003, when I was a lawyer on Wall Street. And I know that the reason why a lot of people are not keen to finance those projects is because it's not the immediate benefit and everybody is looking for their bonus at the end of the year. But if we are passing that and we are looking on a medium to long-term basis, then we might consider and, quite frankly, we should join efforts in having the financial institutions like World Bank to finance, because it's crucial.
Mr. President.
Firstly, Anna, after that.
I hope I didn't open a very...
Not this, Anna.
No, I hope I didn't open up. Exactly, yeah.
Anna is going to add a question for you also.
But I will be very brief. Honestly, I mean, the World Bank, and then you can respond to both issues. The World Bank has to de-ideologize. Because the World Bank is not, by principle, just nuclear is a no-no. Gas was a no-no until very recently. And this is starting to slowly change. Why? Because I don't agree with something that has been repeated. And by the way, I think that Africans are on my line. I mean, for us in Europe, we are mature economies. We don't have growth. We really, renewables make sense. But in Africa, renewables are just today, still today, intermittent. And if we want a good example, is the Dunkelflauten in Germany that was on the brink of, and they have all the batteries and everything, all the backup. So I think that if you are Senegal or you are Mozambique, and the clean European Union buys, if I'm Mozambique or Macky Sall, or the new one, whoever, I can't remember his name, and the Europeans come and buy my gas to make electricity out of it, when they don't finance gas-generated electricity, I I mean, I really don't agree. Like, I put it mildly. I think that we have to understand this balance between development and climate. And we have China. China is doing more in renewables than anyone, more in nuclear than anyone, but is building 90% of all the coal propelled or the coal generated as well. I think that we have to be realistic about renewables, and here you all have a different perspective, as you say that let's put renewables in Africa. Okay, let's put renewables, but let's put baseload energy. And if it's not,
Okay. Okay. Yes, please.
Let me first report to. I've been attacked by two Annas. So-
I am not you, but the woman.
So let me respond to actually to the first Anna. Well, for some reason, World Bank shareholders, which are the countries, do not want the World Bank to finance nuclear, and I can understand why. However, in any case, I don't think that the World Bank should be financing any of those things, because the World Bank lends to countries, to governments, and those then become public projects. I think that energy today, in the 21st century, should be done by the private sector.
Projects, I said, if I may.
Let me finish.
I didn't say, no, but it's relevant, with all the respect. I didn't say, firstly, you said that you understand why. Maybe you elaborate a little bit, because I'm lost in understanding why you understood why the World Bank should not finance it. And secondly, I was not saying general, any energy project. I was talking about the nuclear specific, which in any country in this world cannot be completed without the help of the government.
Okay.
Yes. Now, I did not say that I agree not to finance nuclear. All I said, I understand why the shareholders do not want the World Bank to finance nuclear, because of the military issues and so on. So, that is, but however, also even nuclear energy is done by the private sector in public-private partnerships. I financed many energy projects around the world, where it is the private sector that produces, it can sell, and then afterwards it can either sell to the grid, or it can sell directly, and there are different mechanisms. And you work, and if we want ever to reach the 1.3 trillion, we have to focus on trying to find more ways of raising more private money for those types of projects, because I don't think that the taxpayers in the north or the parliamentarians in the north are going to provide $1.3 trillion every year to countries in the south. And so we need to find those alternative ways of doing it. Now, Anna, actually, I agree with you when you talk about Senegal. You were very specific about Senegal and Mozambique. And actually, I was then Vice President for Africa at the World Bank. And I actually was fighting, and we got the board of directors to agree that we can help those countries finance gas projects, because they have the gas. You're absolutely right. Or if they're selling it to Europe, the impact on the climate is the same. But having said that, for many other countries, actually, today, solar is, even with batteries, is cheaper than many other alternatives. Not always the case, not in Mozambique, not in Senegal, not in Mauritania. But in many countries in the Sahel, where actually the last project I was involved with was solar, but without batteries in Ethiopia. And it was 3 cents per kilowatt hour. That is
What
extremely
about the
inexpensive.
intermittence?
But, well, then you add the batteries.
The batteries do not cover total intermittence.
Well, I mean, like in the case of Ethiopia, you had the dam, which was doing the intermittence, and instead of doing gas power plants, the president is going to shoot us actually. So we'd better stop.
Thank you. Mr. Altwaijri.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. I just forgot one issue that I was going to talk about, but because of the enthusiasm, I lost it. We cannot blame the world financial system by itself because of all the shortcomings it has, but also we have to blame the corruptive political system, administrative system in some countries. They receive loans and aid, but they don't go to the right channels. They don't go to the right targets. And many of the aid and the loans go, from one pocket to the other pocket. So there should be a system of scrutiny, of transparency, of control of the aid and the loans that are given to certain countries where there is no transparency, clear measures that are taken or adopted by those governments. Because I worked with many countries, I'm not going to name them, and many of the aids that go there, is taken by those who are up there, and they manipulate it in a way or another. But little of it goes to the projects or the issues that were given to. So there should be a system in the world that controls this. And I know that, in Africa, for example, they don't have electricity in many villages and towns, in remote areas, and even in some suburbs of the capitals of those countries. And they don't have drinkable water. They don't have even sewage system. They don't have many necessities. But this is not only in Africa, but it's in Latin America, in Asia, in some of the Arab countries. And I think the aid and the support and the loans that are given to the issues of climate change, which is a necessity now, should be also considered in this way. I mean, to be controlled, to be clear, to be transparent, and there should be no one single, opportunity for anybody to hunch and pinch from that money something and puts it in his pocket or her pocket. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'm asking you, ladies and gentlemen, not from this floor, but from the auditorium. Would you like to, please? Benita.
Very briefly, 2 points. The first is, I haven't been at the COP29, but I wonder what can we do in order to bring China and Saudi Arabia in? Because China is responsible for 30% of emissions, and they are just there and don't pay for the others. So I think that's incredible, and also Saudi Arabia. Second, I think you brought me, Mr. Ghanem, you brought me to this idea. Why don't we initiate a conference between us and governments and the private sector, most important private initiators? I think that would be something really very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Benita. Who else? Okay, when I was asking Chinese politicians about that, they said you brought the industry to China in order to have a cheaper production, and right now you are blaming us because of pollution, which is also the truth. Yeah, it's a controversial world we are living in. But at the same time, a lot of interesting questions we have to ask ourselves, and to be very fair, and to understand that we are living in a quite complicated world. I mean, especially in energy. Energy is politics. The crucial thing is that energy is politics. And energy is strategically very important. We are living on the crossroad in terms of geopolitics. We don't know what is going to be final outcome of political changes in the United States, war in Ukraine, and something like that. Few years ago, when the United States has been trying to replace Russian gas, they invested very much in shale gas, in shale oil, and that created huge environmental problems in the United States and earthquakes. But they produce a lot, and right now they have a more their consumption. But we'll see. We are coming to the end of no, of course, we are coming to the end, but Anna Palacio is taking floor.
A complementary explanation. I mean, they tell you, we accepted the rules. And of course, what the Chinese and the many other countries, not just China, but China, as you say, and I think I mentioned that it's 30%. They say, I mean, these are the rules and we didn't make the rules. So the rules we need to reform. I think that if we want to have results, we need to be more realistic about inputs, because if not, we cannot explain, at least we in the European Union, we cannot say. Now, one last message, I think Africa has to have its model, its own model, not just be carried by World Bank or by Europe, but have its own model, because Africa has its own peculiarities. And thank you.
Okay, Anna Birchall, okay.
Women.
No, I just wanted to say thank you to NGIC, to the team, and to Rojvan, and to all the members. While I was not present to COP for good reasons, because I was fighting back in Romania an election, but I heard great things about your participation, and you saved a lot of discussions. So congratulations and thank you to NGIC family.
Thank you. Yes, you can do that. Applause, please. Thank you for your participation. I really enjoyed in moderating this panel. Thanks a lot.
You were great.
For you,